Hey guys, so this is a part two of moving to New Zealand. All you need to know, everything, the visa process, how to go about it. When you decided to move to New Zealand, now you're in Australia. Of course, you have to consider visa that you need to move in with. And so, what visa did you move in with, and how were you able to get the visa? How were you able to get a job before moving? And it was
Yeah.
during pandemic. I didn't know how you did that, but yeah.
When I started the process of, New Zealand, I was coming in quite blind. I really didn't know what I was doing to begin with. So what I first did was I actually found a job first. I found the listing for the job on NHS Jobs of all places. Um, which is a bit ironic. So I found the job listing. It was like an expression of interest, work as a nurse in New Zealand, send us an email if this is what you'd want to do. So I
On
sent an expression
NHS.
of interest. It was on the NHS website. Yeah, if you go on
Okay.
NHS jobs and you click international, literally, yeah,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah. So I almost
Okay.
kind of stumbled upon it almost by accident because I was like, I didn't know where to begin. So anyway, I was just browsing jobs in the UK because I wanted to quit the one I was in anyway. I hope my manager doesn't watch this. So and then I was like just playing around with the international. So there were like job postings in Singapore and Australia, and I saw one for New Zealand. It was like working as a community mental health nurse, and they were recruiting for all different other kinds of nurses as well. Then it was like send us an email as an expression of interest. So I did that, and I sent them an email. And then a couple of days later, they were like, okay, cool beans, can you send us your CV? And then I sent in my CV. And then a few days after that, it must have been about a week, I heard back from the HR people and they said, look, okay, we like the look of your CV. We would like you to talk to like one of like the hiring managers down here. Would you be able to have like an initial phone call conversation? I think it was Zoom. I think we agreed to do Zoom. So I had an initial phone conversation for this person was the manager for one of the community mental health teams in Auckland. And then I spoke to her, and I just, to be fair, at that point, I really didn't know much. I said, look, I do want to move to New Zealand. And I didn't even know you could move at the time because of the lockdowns and the travel restrictions. And then she said, look, yeah, in New Zealand, we're open to essential workers, critical workers, we're short on staff obviously because of the lockdown, so we're definitely hiring and recruiting. And then she told me about the particular visa I can come in with. So it was actually her who did that. And then she told me that they have like relocation packages, so they pay for flights and everything like that. So that was a
Wow.
really good sort of conversation. Yeah. And then we spoke about like my work experience and which area I'd want to work in. And I was like, look, and then she said, look, we prefer you to do the same thing that you're doing now. So I was like, okay, community mental health nursing it is then. And then she was one of the managers for a community mental health team. And then she was like, okay, cool. So we're like, okay, fine. After that conversation, she then gave me a job interview for like the following week. So I had to actually, have like a proper job interview. So the following week, I had a job interview with her alongside another person as well, who was also another manager. And they said, look, that's absolutely fantastic. And then at the end of that call, we were talking about visas and how it works. And then they said, look, normally when we hire nurses, it does take up to a year. To get everything in order, visas. So we definitely understand that, you coming here is going to be, up to a year before you get here. But then as part of that, I would have to sign like a 2-year contract to say, I can't leave. If I leave, I've got to pay back some of the money, etc. That was fine with me. So the visa that they had at the time, this was actually August 2020 is when we had these conversations. That's when I found the job, etc. So in August 2020, I don't know if people can remember what August was like. I think we were coming in and out of lockdowns at that time. Um,
Yeah.
And I know New Zealand had completely shut its borders at the time as well. So there was this visa called a critical purpose visa. So that visa, you can apply for a 6 month one or a 1 year one. And all it is literally if you were an essential worker, whatever particular, they had like a list. I don't know, things like engineers, IT people, healthcare workers, doctors, nurses. You apply for that visa and you get into New Zealand. And then once you get into New Zealand, you have to apply for a specific work visa once you arrive. So that's what I did. So it was 2 visas back to back. So the critical purpose visa, when it was, I got the 1 year one. So, and as soon as I landed, I then had to apply for a essential, it was called an essential skills visa. I don't know they've discontinued that. I have a feeling they might have. And basically, an essential skills visa, yeah, essential skills visa was, it lasts for 3 years. You have to stay, it is linked to your employer. And you can only get that if you're like an essential skilled worker. So I had to stay with them for that long, and if I sort of left my job, I had to apply to get the visa removed, changed, which wasn't a problem. So yeah, and that came back within like a month after I arrived, so it was very quick. So I landed, I applied for this new visa, and this new visa came back like really quickly. So I knew I had like a good like 3 years to stay here as long as I was with this employer.
For those people interested in moving to New Zealand, what would be your advice or the process that they should follow, on how they can get a job? It might be sort of easier for you because it was 2020, but now maybe things are a bit different because of the reform. But still, do you think like New Zealand is still like in need of workers? From your experience living there and everything you've, like your process, what would be your advice?
I would say definitely New Zealand is in need of skilled workers. Um, there is, from what I observed, I don't know if there's any statistical data to back this up, but I would say that a lot of people, especially young people, are leaving New Zealand to come to Australia because Australia does have better pay rates than New Zealand, and young people can feel quite limited. And if you look on the New Zealand immigration website, they do have lists of skilled workers that they need. I would say my process was quite unique, as in I got a job and they were happy to wait for the year for me to sort myself out before I could get there. Whereas I know that these days, sometimes you do need a job in order to get a visa. Or sometimes it can be, or sometimes employers say, look, we can't hire you until you arrive. Or so it can be a chicken and egg situation where you need a visa to get a job, or sometimes you need a job to get a visa. So I would say, depending on your particular circumstances, I would say research your particular field. Because especially a lot of like path to residency visas, they do require you to have a skill, unless you're coming, as part of like someone's family, or whatever. Yeah, so there's definitely a need for skilled workers, but I'll say just research a particular skill. I think with healthcare, you can probably do what I did, and if you find like a district health board, because I know like the DHBs, they're called the district health boards. There are huge nursing shortages. So I'm sure you can probably negotiate with, if you're a healthcare worker, to say, look, can you give me a job, help me with like a visa sponsorship, fly me out, and then obviously, do a contract or whatever beforehand. But I think, yeah, you can most likely do that if you're coming as a healthcare worker. But for other industries, it's quite difficult to say. I think sometimes maybe get your visa and then do it the other way around. So it depends.
Do you like have any other pointers or any other information you'd like to share that you didn't mention before that you can share?
I would say when it comes to immigration, and I'm sure and I know you've moved countries before, it is not for the faint-hearted. Just because you move doesn't mean life gets 100% better or easier. And my experience is unique to me, but I've had some, tough times as well because you're just away from your culture, you're away from your people. And also another
Yeah.
thing I really didn't touch on was like the money that is needed. You have to save up. You've got to save up, and I'd say probably spend like a good year or so saving up in the lead up to you moving, because anything can happen. You never know. You might get sick. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. The job might fall through. So make sure you've got like a good amount of savings, number one. And number two, just like you got to prepare yourself mentally for the
Yeah.
adjustment, because one thing is we focus a lot on like the move, and obviously we want a better life, we want change, we want travel, we want experience and all that, but then there's also like a mental aspect of like, okay, now I'm here, I'm far away from everything I know, I'm listening to an accent which I've never heard before, I'm struggling to understand people, different cultural norms. And would you believe it, even though they're like two Western countries, England and New Zealand, they're considered Western, completely different cultures, completely different work cultures.
Yeah.
Some of the things I thought I was supposed to do, obviously wasn't supposed to do, cultural differences. So you've got to like mentally prepare yourself for that. And it can
Yeah.
be it's not that easy. And sometimes you find that actually moving abroad is not for me. Let me go back home.
Honestly, I've had that thought like millions of times. I think when I was coming to the UK, I had too much expectations, and I was expecting it to be all cool, nice, everything to be smooth. Because how bad can the UK be compared to Nigeria? But honestly, even though I felt like, while I was in Nigeria, is not a country for someone like the stress, like the bad government, the corruption, like felt like no matter how difficult UK is, it won't be as difficult as Nigeria. But there were days that I thought of just packing my bag and going back on. Like, you know what? I don't care. No matter how difficult Nigeria is, I don't feel this mentally stressed. And it was because I didn't prepare myself mentally. I had too much expectations. And like I said, living abroad is not, you're living with families, what you're used to, your custom, your culture, to go somewhere for a better life, and you end up struggling. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah,
No, I completely agree with you on that one. And like I said, I spent I've lived in the UK since I was 8 years old. And even I struggled, to adjust to that. And I've had like a, secondary struggle with moving to Australia now, the first 2 weeks were a bit rough. But I would say my advice is that don't have any expectations going in. Have like a blank mind. And I would say that's where I went right. I didn't have any expectations. My mom told me, like, if you hate this, like, just fly back, like, come back home. So I know that my family's got my back. They are always there waiting for me. So if I ever want to go home, so that safety net does help to know that like I could just get on a plane and leave, like, But then at the same time, as an immigrant, it does take time. I say give yourself about 6 months to adjust. Try and find some friends if you can, and also explore. Don't just go to work. Like, that really
yeah,
helps as well. Go and get in your car and drive down. Go to the pub with the work friends and be open-minded. Don't have any expectations, number one, and be open-minded to just like try new things. And yeah, I think that really does help, and I think that's what's really helped me, just being open, and it's led me to so many different places, and I've met so many like wonderful people along the way. So yeah.
So guys, we've come to the end of today's video. So Temi is on YouTube as well. You can check her out on YouTube. I would add her YouTube URL in the description box below, and also tag her name in the title, so it'll be easier for you to find her out. She has tons of videos on her experience in New Zealand and right now in Australia. So if you are a nurse or you're in mental health, you are interested in migrating to New Zealand or Australia, all the information you need is on her channel. So you find all the details, everything. So check her out on YouTube, and please leave a subscribe. Let's handle your from Faith, okay? And I'll see you guys in my next video. If this video was helpful, you know what to do. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.